Thank you for joining the Expired Show. And tonight we are continuing our conversation on the most haunted castles in the world. So,
Indeed, we are.
uh, these are pretty freaky deaky. Some of them really freaky
Yeah,
deaky.
especially the one that I wasn't able to say last week. This will actually put chills down people's spines. But
Ooh.
first, ladies first.
Well, that's because you went first last week.
Yeah, that's true actually.
Does that make you a lady? Ah, part reminds you to know.
No.
Okay, so guys, I don't know which one to start with because there's so many to start with, but
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm gonna start with Corbin Castle, also known as Hunyad Castle.
Oh, I see.
It's often associated with Vlad the Impaler. For those of you that know about Vlad the Impaler, um, and so the
Yep.
castle was built by John Hunyadi, the ruler of Transylvania at the time, and it was
Oh, I
originally
see.
located in Hungary. When it was built, it was in Hungary, but because of border changes over the time, it's now located in Romania. But originally, it wasn't in Romania; it was Hungary. So they say that Vlad the Impaler is said to have been imprisoned there, and that he kept himself alive by eating rats. Ew. I mean, that should have given him some diseases or something. Okay, and this is supposedly where his fascination for impalement started. For those of you who don't know, Vlad the Impaler would impale his victims. He would have his soldiers in battle impale the rival army and leave them impaled for everyone to see. So
Mm-hmm.
supposedly, when I guess he was in prison in this castle before
Mm.
the battles where he started impaling people, and this is where he got his idea and fascination with impaling. So I guess maybe he saw something at the castle when he was there, but they say there's no evidence that that's where his fascination for impalement started, but that's what historians suggest. Now,
Uh-huh.
Corbin Castle is haunted and cursed indeed. Okay, so a few years ago, some tourists decided it would be fun to be locked in after hours. You know how they do like those ghost hunting shows and things? Well, when they were found the next morning, all the tourists were terrified and black and blue. So apparently, one of the ghostly residents is a torturous poltergeist.
Mm-hmm.
So it basically tortured them all night and beat them up to where they're all black and blue when they were found in the morning.
Yikes.
And it is one of the biggest and most impressive castles in Europe. It is massive. It really, really is massive. It's like on this mountain and it has this massive, massive bridge, drawbridge. It's humongous. It's way up in the air. Okay, and it's located in the city of Hanedora on the Hungarian-Romanian border. That's why before it used to be Hungary and now it's Romania. The castle is also referred as Hunyad Castle, like I said, and
Mm-hmm.
Hunedora Castle. Okay, so now even though it looks like it's something out of a fairy tale, like a fairy tale castle, its history is quite morbid and dark. So
Mm.
the John Hunyadi, the ruler of Transylvania at the time in 1441, ordered the castle to be built. He carefully chose a location right on top of the ruin of a fortress that was once built by King Charles I of Hungary. So this is built, which is typical what they normally would do. They normally build castles on top of the ruins of other castles, palaces. So now when it was built on top of the hill right above the Slasti River, it was given a Renaissance Gothic style with a romantic touch. It has several large towers. Three of these towers, the Capistrano Tower, the Drummers Tower, the Deserted Tower, were used as prisons.
Uh-huh.
It's really pretty though. I mean, the castle itself. It's sad to know that they're used as prisons. Anyways, it took about 15 years to finish the castle. When John Hunyadi died in 1456, the work on the castle stagnated. And then it wasn't until the 17th century, okay, so 200 years later, the people wanted to renovate the castle. So 200 years after the death of the ruler who ordered it to be built,
Yeah.
people then wanted to finish the castle. So instead of
Okay.
being finished in the 1400s, it was finished in the 1600s. They renovated it. Now, in 1854, there was a fire caused by a lightning storm, and it destroyed all the wooden parts of the castle, except for one thing: the 500-year-old wooden door to the dungeon. It took over 40 years to restore the castle again.
Yeah.
Now, in the
Wow.
courtyard near the 15th century chapel, there's a 100-foot or 30-meter deep well. And according to legend, this well was dug by 3 Turkish prisoners who were promised freedom if they reached the water. They had to dig into solid stone, so it took them 15 years and 28 days to finish.
Mm. I see.
So then I guess they got their freedom after 15 years and 28 days of digging that well. But let's see if he did. No, they didn't. John Hunyadi, who made the
Mm-hmm.
promise to them, had died during that time.
Yeah.
And his wife took over, and she had different plans for them.
Oh, I see.
So they just laughed, the keepers just laughed, and threw them back into their cells. One of the prisoners wrote on the wall in his prison cell, "You have on the wall near the well, you have water but no soul." And he cursed it.
Oh.
Today, Turkish tourists still throw coins into the well to honor their enslaved countrymen. Yeah, I would be highly upset if someone promised me freedom if I dug them a well and brought them water, and then after more than 15 years doing it, I succeeded, and then they threw me back in the cell.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's go to Vlad III of Draculish, the Impaler. That's where Dracula comes from, the name, because he was named Vlad III of Draculish.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yeah.
so some claim that the ruthless Vlad had been held prisoner in this castle for 7 years, starting in 1462 to 1469.
Mm-hmm.
And some claim he was imprisoned by John Hunyadi himself, which is quite surprising, for the good man himself had passed away 6 years earlier. So John Hunyadi could not have imprisoned Vlad the Impaler because he had died 6 years prior. And tour guides will even show you where Vlad was held, but there's no evidence at all that he was actually there. So
Yeah.
it's a good story, but they say that he was kept there for 7 years and he ate rats to stay alive. But historians haven't actually found physical proof of it. So Now, they claim that while he was in prison there, he lost his mind and got obsessed with impaling his victims because he did the same to the rats he ate. Oh, okay. So that kind of makes sense. He was impaling the rats for food, and that was what gave him his idea to do it to people.
Ah, right.
Okay, so many people suffered through torture in this castle. There's a torture chamber that can be found in the dungeon, and some very interesting torture devices. It has a bear pit as well. So,
A bear
ooh,
pit?
bear pit, yeah, where bears were, and they throw people in there, and they'd be eaten alive by bears, mauled by bears. See, prisoners who were
It's a
sentenced to
bit.
death were thrown into this pit and eaten alive by the hungry bears below.
Eef. Well, they didn't give
Yeah,
him a weapon or anything to be able to fight the bear?
no, they were already sentenced to death, so they were thrown down, eaten alive, because the bears, I guess they didn't feed the bears. They only fed the bears um, bodies of people that they threw down there, so the bears were always hungry, waiting
Mm.
for the next death sentence to be able to eat.
Mm.
Now, the legend of the raven. Okay, so John Hunyadi's family crest contains a raven. Corvus is raven in Latin. Okay, carrying a golden ring in its beak. The legend says, which may have some truth, King Sigmund of Luxembourg ruled Hungary from 1387 until 1437. He had a child with one of his subjects. He had given her a golden ring, telling her to pass it on to her son. The ring was given to the son when he was of age, but a raven stole it and took off. John Hunyadi got it back while shooting the raven with an arrow,
Oh, I see.
which might indicate that John Hunyadi is the illegitimate child of King Sigismund. Uh,
Ah, I see.
so King, because they said that legend has that King Sigismund of Luxembourg, who ruled Hungary from 1387 to 1437, had a child with one of his subjects, and he had given her a golden ring to pass on to her son. That's the ring that John Hunyadi had. So that means that he was the illegitimate child of King Sigismund. But we never really will know if he was or not. But it seems like he was, because unless he stole that ring from someone else.
Right.
So, so he was the illegitimate child of a king. Now, talk about the ghost of Corbin Castle. Okay, this
Mm-hmm.
place has seen so much suffering and pain that, of course, it's probably dun, what do we say? Haunted. Okay, and so it is. Now, the Capistrano Tower, who's one of the prisons, remember, is haunted by a monk. The monk was sentenced to death for spying on a nobleman in the council room. He was bricked in the wall and slowly died. They did a lot of bricking people in the walls back then.
Oh, how lovely.
That just brings a whole different interpretation for me for the song "Another Brick in the Wall."
Yeah, well, that and the,
Well, anyways, he was bricked in the wall and slowly died. And they say he's still there spying on people in the castle. So if you're there and you're feeling watched, it's probably him. Guess he never learned anything from his punishment, huh? I can't believe they would kill a monk for that, though. Okay, now there have been other apparitions, shadow figures, and orbs seen by many people.
mm-hmm.
Many EVPs, for those of you who don't know what EVPs are, they're electronic voice phenomena that ghost hunters tend to use. Many EVPs have been recorded as well. And there are some violent poltergeist activity. There is some violent poltergeist activity going on there. And people also get overwhelmed by the feeling of dread, screams, and footsteps are heard, and people have been touched by unseen hands.
I see.
Now, so as I mentioned earlier, some years back, few years back, some clever tourists managed to get themselves locked in Corbin Castle at night after hours. What started off as a prank resulted in extreme fear. When the castle opened its doors the next morning, they were found bruised, beaten, and literally terrified.
Mm-hmm.
They said that some unseen force tortured them all night. So, whatever you do, don't get locked in because it doesn't seem like it's any fun.
Definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, that imagine they're covered in bruises already in the morning. What was this thing doing to them? Throwing them against the walls, launching them up into the air, like
Yeah,
punching them?
I suggested probably something like that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so now coming to today, the castle has been a museum since 1978 and it offers tours. But beware of the torturous poltergeist because he's out for blood. So,
So,
yeah, that is Corvin Castle, or supposedly Vlad the Impaler was imprisoned, lost his mind, and got the idea to impale humans. And that
mm.
concludes my Corvin Castle in Romania. When originally it was built in Hungary, but now it's Romania. So, what do you have next?
Well,
System.
I have one that's basically going to strike fear into the hearts of our readers, especially those who believe in this kind of stuff. And I'm now going to talk about Hauska Castle in Prague, Czech Republic. Now, this castle has a very infamous reputation. And I'll tell you the reason why in a minute, which
Mm-hmm.
will actually probably cause some serious chills down our reader's spine, because it did me when I read it.
Well,
Now,
you mean listeners?
hmm?
So you mean listeners? We don't have readers.
Yes, listeners, sorry. I do apologise. So, Husky Castle was built during the 15th century by a man that was the second Odica of Bohemia, who
You haven't
built
said where.
it
Uh-huh.
for one specific reason.
You haven't said where it's located.
Oh, yes, I did. It's in Prague, Czech Republic.
Oh, okay. I must
I
missed
did
that.
actually say that when I first started.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, no.
I didn't hear that.
Now, originally it was going to be used as a administrative building where other royal properties could be managed from. However, the real reason that it was built was because it was trying to hide something very evil. It was actually built to hide a gateway to hell.
Yeah, I've seen that one on Ghost Hunters.
Now, for hundreds of years, the property has been passed between different members of the aristocracy between 1584 and 1590.
Just
The
6 years.
castle was then modified to fit a newer Renaissance style, which was popular at the time. Now,
The castle looks really ugly, I must say.
yes, In the 18th century, however, nobles were no longer living there and the property was essentially abandoned. Probably the reason why could be I'm about to explain. The property remained empty because the chapel allegedly covers a gateway to hell. Now, this is a gaping hole in the ground, which at the time of initial destruction was so deep that no one could see the bottom of it. In order to torture poor prisoners who had been sentenced to death, were supposedly told that they would receive pardons if they allowed themselves to be lowered into the hole with a rope. And they would then be asked to tell those on the surface exactly what they saw down there. Now, one particular story mentions that the first prisoner that agreed to go down there started screaming after only a few seconds. And when he was pulled back up, he eventually aged 30 years with white hair and wrinkles. Now, there were numerous reports of demonic, animal-like beasts crawling out of the hole, as well as otherworldly dark-winged creatures that would fly out around it.
So they just left the hole open? They didn't bother covering it up?
No, they did. They covered it with the chapel, but basically it's still underneath the floorboards. Now, these sightings supposedly explain why this castle was uniquely built with its defensive walls facing inward, an attempt to keep the demons who escaped from the hole from getting out to other parts of the castle. This also explains why the building is curiously missing many of its necessities to house occupants, including there is absolutely no water source whatsoever, no kitchen, and no external fortifications.
Mm-hmm.
It is also constructed on a piece of land located in the middle of nowhere, because they didn't want anyone coming to the castle.
Yeah, it's built on top of a cliff surrounded by 4 swamps. Another cliff.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely
Wasn't located near any trade routes, nor did it have any strategic value. Even to this day, people say that they hear creatures inside the wall at night trying to scratch their way out and screaming.
That is creepy.
As if housing a gateway to hell isn't enough, the castle also supposedly has many poltergeists that inhabit the grounds, including a white lady who stands mourning in the window, as well as a demon hound which evaporates, leaving a disgusting smell behind it.
Ew, like a skunk. Ew.
Now, for hundreds of years, it was considered a demonic site, which was taken over by the Germans during World War II in an effort to use its power for their own benefit. Did they not learn from Raiders of the Lost Ark?
That didn't exist during World War II. Raiders of the Lost Ark didn't exist during World War II.
No, it didn't. But they were basically looking for other artifacts of holy or nefarious value, which is why I mentioned Raiders of the Lost Ark.
No, you said why they didn't learn anything from it because it didn't exist. Okay, so you may proceed.
Some say that their whole reason for occupation of the castle was to investigate whether it was actually a gateway of hell for real. But what is known is the Germans occupied the castle to conduct very nefarious experiments there. Now, many of the locals spoke about their experiences during the occupation, recalled hearing terrifying noises as well as strange lights coming from the castle both day and night. It was also reported that high-ranking Wehrmacht officials would attend dark ceremonies in the castle, which they believed was their attempt of harnessing the power of hell in order to be
Hmm.
able to win the fight. Hmm. Others, however, believed that the castle acted as a storage facility for roughly 13,000 documents on the account, which was collected by a commander of the Schutzstaffel and the Gestapo. Ah, very interesting. Basically, the Nazis believed in everything what everyone said about it being a horrific place to hound themselves. Very interesting.
A horrific place to what?
To um I'm gonna say this in the normal way. A place to conduct their war tactics, plus also torturing any prisoners that came
Oh, okay.
into the area. And that's all I got about it. That definitely seems like a really spooky place, though. I mean, if that is generally a gateway to hell, there's no way that I would want to be anywhere near it.
Yeah.
And the fact that Nazis inhabited it for their nefarious deeds.
You've never seen it on TV when they like the different ghost hunting groups gone to it?
No, no.
Mm. Yeah, I've seen them go to it. Um.
I did see it in a film once.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they actually had the gateway opened, and they were trying to sacrifice a kid to it.
Yeah, but
Forgotten what the film was called, but I remember
that's
it.
probably a fake one, not a real one, not the real
Yeah,
place. Okay, so
but it's
now
supposedly
I'm
supposed to be the castle.
okay. Now I'm going to talk about Akershus Castle, Akershus. Okay, and it was is a very great importance to Scandinavian history. It is considered the most haunted place in Norway. It's a Norwegian
Yeah, really.
stronghold. But whoever owned the castle ruled Norway. So during the centuries, both the Swedish and the Norwegian armies fought to siege the castle. So much blood has run through the streets and courtyards that Akershus Castle is. That's why it's considered to be the most haunted place in Norway. And it's not just haunted by human spirits.
Mm-hmm.
It's haunted by. Guess what it's haunted by? Can you guess
It's
what kind of
haunted.
spirits? If it's not human spirits,
It's haunted by demons.
that's what I thought. But actually, it's haunted by a horse and a vicious dog.
It's
They
haunted
both,
by a horse. Really?
yep, and they both haunt the main entrance. Now
Oh, I
the dog and
see.
the dog is called Limalcanison. See, the main entrance was the weak spot of the entire castle, and one of the guards came up with a solution to that problem. And
Uh-huh.
its solution, in my opinion, is terrible, horrible. And please, listeners out there, do not ever do this. Do not attempt any of the things we're talking about. Okay, so these are, stories and legends. Some are real, some are fake, but this is stuff that happened hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. So do not attempt any of these things we discussed. Now, what the guard came up was with to protect the entrance to make it stronger. His solution, it was easy. Apparently, he took his most beloved and fierce guard dogs and guard dog and buried it alive near the entrance. So legend has it that the dog returned as a ghost, more vicious than he was when he was alive.
Mm-hmm.
Poor dog, buried him alive. That's animal abuse.
Yeah,
Okay,
that
so
definitely is.
it's located in Oslo, Norway. It's near the harbor and it's very important to Scandinavian country. And it's called Akershus Castle or Akershus Slot og Festning. It was built at the end of the 1200s to protect Oslo against enemies from the outside as well as from the inside. And it's the most haunted building in Norway, they say. So it's on the harbor, which is really pretty. Like the thing, it's on the water. Like I would like a castle on the water like that. But um, it's weird because the style of the castle just doesn't seem like it's not a fairy tale style castle. It it has some towers, but the like all the roofs are made of Spanish tile, so it's interesting. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's because usually Spanish tile, I guess they transported it up there. Uh, It was kind of interesting that a castle in Norway would have Spanish tile, but anyhow, so which Spanish tile is still used to this day, home, and it's beautiful because my houses had it. Okay, so now King Haakon the Fifth started building the castle in 1290 to replace the weaker castles Bahus and Tonsberg. So Akershus Castle was built in reaction to earlier attacks in Oslo by the Norwegian nobleman Earl Alv Erlingsson of Sarpsborg.
Yes.
It endured many sieges successfully, and it earned the title of the most invincible European castle, which is a
Right.
good title to have.
Mm-hmm.
Most sieges came from Sweden, who wanted to claim Norway in order to become one big Scandinavian nation. So the Swedes were attacking the castle, but the castle, you know, survived most of the sieges. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why it was considered the most invincible European castle, which is a good title to have as a castle because then that, you know, makes other people think twice before attacking you. Now, but Sweden tried 8 times to siege the castle, but never succeeded. So at the beginning of the 17th century, the castle was renovated and modernized into a Renaissance castle. So this happened during the reign of King Christian IV.
Oh, I see.
Akershus Castle is also the final resting place for many Norwegian royals, like King Haakon VII, Queen Maud, and King Sturgard I. And it is massive. Okay, like I mean, super massive. Like how many buildings do you think it has?
Um,
Remember, it's a castle, so usually castles are like one big
24?
giant building. It has 67 buildings, and
67 buildings.
it's as big as
Wow.
14 soccer fields.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's near Oslofjord, which was a very important and strategical position because not only was it perfectly located for the Norwegian Navy, but for trade as well, because they're there in the harbor. But there was an even more important side to it, and that's something I mentioned earlier. What was the most important thing about this castle? About having the castle?
Um, to keep people out?
No, whoever owned the castle automatically ruled Norway. So that's why
Oh, I see.
Sweden kept trying to take over the castle, but they never succeeded.
Ah, I see. Right.
But it was automatic that whoever got the castle became the ruler of Norway. So that's why they wanted to, um, invade it so much. And it was also an infamous prison. Now, the Norwegian Robin Hood. Yes, there's a Norwegian Robin Hood. Everyone. And he lived from 1797 to 1848. So he died at age 51. Now, his name was Ole Hoyland. He committed suicide in his prison cell at the castle when he was 51.
Oh, he did. Oh, I see.
Yeah. He was well known for his escape. He escaped prison 11 times.
Mm-hmm.
Can you believe that? 11
Wow.
times he escaped the
11 times.
yeah, the prison. But I guess he always got caught and brought back. And
Yeah.
he robbed the Norwegian bank in 1835.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Okay, it says, oh no, his escapes. Okay, he escaped 11 times, but that wasn't from Akershus. Okay, now it it says he escaped Akershus once, but he was locked back in 3 years later. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so then when they caught him 3 years later, they put him back in. Now apparently he couldn't handle that, and a part of the prison is known as the Slaverier, which means slavery.
Yeah.
The prisoners in that part of the castle had to put up with extreme hard labor, which caused many of them
Mm-hmm.
to die during their imprisonments, because of all the harsh labor. They didn't get rest, they didn't get proper meals.
Yes, yes.
And so, um, but that was too much for him to bear, so he committed suicide. He is only 51. So that was the Norwegian Robin Hood and his relation to the castle. Now,
Wow.
since Akershus Castle was never, I've never heard of this castle before, and I've heard like of so many castles. So I'm actually kind of impressed by this one.
Okay.
The Akershus Castle was never sieged by a foreign enemy until guess who took over in the 1940s?
Mm.
We were just talking about them in your previous castle.
Oh.
1940s?
The Odika.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, anyways, it was the Germans. So
Oh, the
the
Germans.
Germans took over in 1940. The castle surrendered without a fight. During World War II, several people were executed at the castle.
The castle surrendered without a fight.
Yep. So because probably because they knew how crazy the Nazi Germans were. That,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
if this was like the most invincible castle though. Oh, but you
Mm-hmm.
see, the technology in 1940 of weaponry was much different than they had back when the castle was built. So now they could blow up those walls and destroy the entire castle in the 1940s because not only did they have cannons like they did back in the day, but they had more like torpedoes and we call it missiles and things like that they didn't have 60 years ago. So now Akershus was finally liberated May 11th, 1945. So the Germans had it for 5 years and committed executions in there.
All
After
right.
that, 8 Norwegian traitors, amongst them political leader Vidkun Quisling, were executed on the castle's grounds. Quisling went to Germany to take over Norway because he felt connected to the Nazis. That's why he
I
surrendered.
see. Right.
Akershus was chosen as an execution location to make a
Mm-hmm.
statement to the rest of the world.
Ah, right.
So the 8 people that were traitors, that betrayed Norway and surrendered to Germany,
Yep.
were
Yep.
all executed once the Germans left. So, of course, what happens usually when there's lots of executions at a place or lots of deaths? The places usually are haunted. So, now looking at the castle's history that I just went over, you wouldn't be surprised it's haunted because many people died there. Now, many
Uh-huh.
visitors and employees claim to have experienced something they cannot explain. So most
Mm-hmm.
of the paranormal occurrences are the common stuff you find in other locations, like people hear footsteps, smell strange smells, there's disembodied voices. But there are some claims that have been around for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
Now, okay, so all castles have their weak spots, however strong they seem. Now, for Akershus, this was the main gate. Gatekeeper Garshel came up with a plan to keep the enemies away. He buried
Yes.
one of his dogs at the main gate. The creepy part about this is, remember, the dog was buried alive. So the dog returned as a vengeful ghost dog. Soldiers were terrified of this Malcanison, as they call him, which is Norwegian
Mm-hmm.
for vicious dog.
Yes.
Once bitten by this dog, you were bound to die within 3 months. Of course, in a very unhappy and painful way. Probably with the help of a couple of Norwegian warriors.
Yeah,
The dog is
that's a bit wild.
buried, yeah, the dog is buried in the Maiden Tower. So if you visit Akershus, remember to beware of the dog because he's vicious. Now, another ghost that's commonly seen there is Margaret Castellan. Okay, she's a
Okay.
woman that people have claimed for a long time to see her. She appears in the darkness at Margaret Castellan. She wears a long dark cloak and has no face. She is called the Mantelgeistin, cloaked ghost, and she is seen very often.
Ah, I see.
So she has no face. Ooh, I've seen a ghost before with no face. It had like the rest of the body, but it had no face, no hands, no feet, but it had like all the clothed part of its body showed, but
Mm-hmm.
the skin parts were gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like 10 years old, living in Venezuela at the time. It was in my school. And so I found out after me and two of my friends saw this ghost girl. She looked like a high
Mm-hmm.
schooler. We were in 5th grade
Yeah.
and we were walking between the high school and the elementary school. Um, like for people who don't know, international private schools tend to have elementary schools and high schools together. Elementary, junior high, high schools all together, and usually in different buildings, but they're all connected. So we're walking in between the elementary school and the high school. There's a walkway there, and we were spending the night at the school because our teacher thought, hey, it'd be fun if we spent the evening at the school telling ghost stories in the auditorium.
Mm-hmm.
And so one weekend, I don't remember if it was a Friday night or a Saturday night.
Yeah.
I think it was a Saturday. Yeah, because we weren't in school the day when we got dropped off. So it was a Saturday night. We stayed
Uh-huh.
there. And when my two best friends and I went out for a walk, everyone was walking outside doing things, playing in the playground and stuff. But when it got dark, then the teacher told everyone to come inside because we got dropped off during the day. So then we were all going inside. We were staying in the high school part of the building, which big, where the big auditorium was. because we could
Right.
sleep in there like beds, with sleeping bags.
Yeah.
And so, as my two best friends and I were going, back inside the building because it had gotten dark, that's when we saw this ghostly apparition of a female, long hair, and she was wearing like a shirt and like some jeans, like 80s style clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And but there's no face and no hands and no feet.
Wow,
And
really?
she stood in front of us probably, I mean, it seemed like forever. It seemed like she was there for like 10 minutes, but I know that was just being freaked out. So she was probably there a good at least 30 seconds to a minute.
Wow.
And we were just speechless. Like all three of us had our mouths open. Like we weren't saying anything to each other. We were just staring because we're like, what did we just see? Like
Mm.
not sound came out of us. And then after she left, because at first I we thought it was a real girl. So we thought it was a real high schooler there that came to the school outside of her uniform and was wearing regular clothes.
Yeah.
So we said hi to her when we saw her walking towards us. And then when she got like 4 feet in front of us, that's when we realized she had no face. Oh, it was
Oh my goodness.
creepy. And then I ended up finding out from the school librarian who had been there since the school was built.
Yeah.
She was very old. She was like in her like 80s or 90s. Maybe not that old, but super old. Probably 80s. She could, like she should have been retired, but she wasn't.
Yeah.
So she uh told us because we went and told our teacher about the ghost. The teacher didn't believe us. And so
Eh,
then,
typical. Most teachers
yeah.
don't.
And then the librarian heard us talking about it in the library because we were like, like, what do we do? Like, we didn't know what to do. We were all freaked out, but we were all like in the library talking together in a group. It was
Yep.
me and my two best friends and
Mm-hmm.
another boy. And so she overheard us, and then she told us, she's like, you guys saw, a dead high schooler? We're like, yes. She looked like she was a high school because she was much taller than us, and we described her hair and what she was wearing. She wasn't wearing a uniform. She was wearing regular clothes, but she was missing her face and her hands and her feet. And so then the librarian told us that back in the 80s, remember I told you she had like 80s clothes on?
Mm-hmm.
And this was the 80s actually. This was the late 80s. But
Yeah.
this is like 88, no, this is like 89, 89, 90. And so apparently years before in the early 80s,
Yeah.
there was this high school couple, a boy and a girl that were dating, and they snuck into the school after at night when school was closed, and they went into one of the classrooms, and the boy had this book on devil worshiping,
Yeah.
and he wanted to do like like a session to, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, this uh summon demons or something. I don't know exactly what he was doing with the devil worshiping book, but
Ah.
anyhow, he sacrificed his girlfriend and murdered her there. So the librarian told us that was probably her ghost that we saw.
Oh, I see.
And then we were like, oh, okay, well, that would make sense. And then when we dug further into the history, oh, and that book, by the way, was in the
Mm-hmm.
library. And we found it because she told us that book's still here in the library. And we were like, why don't you guys throw it away? And she said, we have thrown it away and it always comes back. And so my friends and I were like, I was like determined that I was going to get rid of it. I was like, no, I'll get rid of it. And I'm like, I'm going to take it to the farthest place I can on campus. I took it behind the cafeteria. There was these big giant dumpsters. I couldn't see inside them because they're massive dumpsters, and I was a 10-year-old. And but I threw the book as hard as I could up in the air into one of the dumpsters. And I was like, okay, it's impossible for anyone to get that book now because no one can climb into those dumpsters. Only machines could lift them up because they're really high up, so no one could even see what was inside them.
Yeah.
And when we went to school the next day, the book was back in the bookshelf. And I didn't tell anyone where I threw it, where I got rid of it at. So that was really creepy. And then we also ended up finding out from the librarian that she said before the school was built, there was a cemetery there. So the school was built over a cemetery.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah. So, and this is um CIA is the name of the school, Colegio Internacional de Caracas. No, that was CIC, sorry, CIC. Yeah, Colegio Internacional de Caracas. And it went by CIC for short. And so for any of you
Mm-hmm.
who went to that school or in that school now, if you're listening from Venezuela, that place is haunted. The, it scared the crapolita out of me and my friends. Now, going back to this lady, so that the cloaked ghost that they see has no face as well, just like the ghost I saw. Now, the Malcaniston, which is the evil dog, the vicious dog, and the Mantelgeisten, which is the ghost lady with no face, they're not the only ghosts. Okay, so at the drawbridge, people claim to hear screams as if a battle's taking place, and they even feel like something breathing down their neck. And they believe this
Oh,
is the
right.
ghost of the old gatekeeper.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so and then a drunken Swedish man once stormed the castle with his horse. He was screaming that he was taking over Norway. He and his horse were both shot at the gate.
Oh, I see.
Ever since then, the horse, not the guy, but the horse haunts the premises, scaring everybody half to death.
Oh, right.
And the Virgin Tower, another one of the towers that was used. Actually, no, the Virgin Tower was not used as a prison. That
Uh-huh.
so I'm not sure why that one would be so haunted, but the Virgin Tower, the highest tower, is supposed to be full of tons of different ghosts.
Well, really?
And so, still to this day, Akershus Castle is military base, but it's also open to the public. More than 900 people work at the castle. Wow, that's a lot of people. You can also book ghost tours. So, and it's really beautiful. So, if you have the chance to visit, then do it. You'll learn more of Norwegian history and perhaps even encounter some ghostly spirits who will
Mm,
follow you home and go to bed with
yeah.
you
No, thank you.
and haunt your dreams and nightmares.
No, I'll be slamming the door in
Ah.
their face before they get any scared from mine. Be like, hello, goodbye. I did
Ooh,
not invite you in, so you're not allowed. Bye. Bye, bye, bye. Go, 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 go. Shoo.
Dante, Dante,
Go away.
going going to eat you alive. Yeah, they're the ghosts clapping. They love that.
I've got a Hoover and I know how to use it.
You're gonna suck them up with the Hoover vacuum.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, on that note, what do you have for us next? Which castle?
Well, I have a very well known castle in the United States by the name of Belcourt Castle in Newport, Rhode Island, which is reputedly, widely, to be one of America's most haunted areas. Now, this features legendary ghosts and active spirits in. Get ready for this? How many, as you made me guess how many rooms your one had, guess how many rooms this one has?
No, that was buildings, not rooms. Rooms, there's thousands of rooms. But
All right.
buildings, it was 67 buildings.
Well, guess how many rooms it's got?
That castle,
Mm-hmm.
uh, 324.
No. Slightly lower than that. Actually, a lot lower than
124.
that. Bit lower than that.
90.
Just a teeny bit down from that.
88.
Nope. It
Okay, tell
has
me.
60 rooms, all haunted. Visitors and residents have reportedly had some paranormal phenomena such as moving suits of armor, cloaked figures, and ghostly apparitions in the Gothic ballroom. Now, the
They like to
haunt.
dance. I can get with that. I love dancing too. I mean, just because you're dead doesn't mean you have to stop dancing. So I'd
True.
be in the ballroom as well. I'm just saying, if I were a ghost, I'd be in the ballroom.
Yes, well, the haunt armor is basically a suit of armor which is known to shake, move, and make noises all on its own.
Ooh, like they show in the movies.
Mm, yeah, but not suspended by wires. There is also reportedly the ghost of a monk, and this is usually seen in the gallery, thought to be associated with the antique furnishings. And plus, this place also has 2 possessed chairs. Now, I don't understand what it does, but I'm sure that like someone sits on it and suddenly it starts darting around the room or fluting above,
It probably just
possibly.
shake.
Mm.
Because I
There's
went to a
also
seance in Key West when I was studying at the University of Miami. I went with my boyfriend at the time and my best friends and their boyfriends,
hmm
and we attended this seance. We're doing like a ghost tour, and there's also you could attend a seance if you wanted, and
yes,
so we did. And the chairs we were sitting in started rattling, like when the spirits came. We couldn't see them, but our chairs started rattling really loudly, and the table
yeah,
started
that's probably
shaking.
what I mean. Yeah,
But I think that was fake, though. I think that was like, they had probably had the chairs wired and the table wired to move to make, tourists think the place was haunted.
possibly,
Uh,
possibly.
I don't think it was a real seance. I think it was something for tourists.
hmm There's also the spirit of a apparition called the Pink Lady, which is
Ooh,
spotted
pink,
in
my
the
favorite
ladies'
color.
bedrooms.
She's wearing pink, or
Yep.
why is she called the Pink Lady?
Um, she has a pink dress.
Oh, lovely. Even though back in the day, pink was a guy color and blue was the lady's color, so that's odd that she would be in a pink dress.
There's also
That's
an
interesting.
area that they call the Coronation Coach, which is an area with a load of lights and apparitions that can be seen from any window in the castle.
Oh,
And lastly,
interesting.
the
Probably UFOs.
the last ghost is happened to be what they call the man on the balcony,
Oh, was
which
he out there
is
smoking a
a
cigar?
dark figure which usually is observed during the tours of the castle during present day. Now, let's get into the statistics of the background of this castle. Built in 1894 by Oliver Hazard Perry Belmont, The house was designed as a hunting lodge, with the first
Wait,
floor
it was built in
consisting mainly of
1854?
stables. Yes,
Oh, so
18.
it's pretty new then. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go on. It's not old like the other castles. So I mean, okay, so 1854 is probably one of the last castles ever built.
Yes, possibly. Now, going to present day. In 1950s, socialites Lewis and Elaine Lollard bought Belcourt and hosted the Newport Jazz Session Festival there in 1955 and 1956. Ruth and Harold Tinney bought the mansion in November 1956 to use it as a private residence and a home for their exotic furnishings. Ruth and Harold Tinney only had one son, Donald, who married Harley Hanson, a pre-med student from Provence in 1960. Together they collaborated in running the castle's museum and offered tours. Now, Donald Tinney died in January 2006, and Harley Tinney sold Belcourt Castle in 2012 to Caroline Raphaelian, founder of the jewelry and accessories company Alex and Annie. Tinney now resides in Middletown. Now, Tinney believed that the antique furnishings of the house brought with them paranormal energies. She recorded
Yeah.
one tour of the castle in which visitors were allowed to rest a hand on an early Gothic chair. One visitor's touch yielded a flash of light and the smell of burning rubber. Now, a
Yes,
super
the items and furnishings can be haunted. They can carry
mhm.
spirits with them. They're attached to them.
Now, a suit of 15th century armor once frightened a group of Girl Scouts because they claimed that the suit had moved all on its own.
Ooh.
Tinney also recalls one night when she awoke and saw a man standing by her bed. The man's face was cloaked by a hood, and he left the room by walking through the wall.
Ooh. I would have been like, don't be disrespectful. Use the door and don't come back in my room. Like, how rude walking through the wall.
So it's believed that an extensive collection of antiques from 33 countries brought with them the paranormal spirits and the energies that haunt the house to this day. And
Yes,
that's Belcourt
and
Castle.
my parents used to have an antique shop, and I do believe that there are there could be spirits, good or bad, are attached to items and furniture.
Uh-huh.
So because it seems like some items, bad things would happen around them, and some items, nothing bad would happen. So I do believe in that, and we
Mm.
still have a lot of antiques to this day.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, who knows how many ghosts there are? Ooh.
Interesting.
Well, that was interesting. That was the first one we had where they talked about like haunted furnishings.
Mm.
But that makes sense because that's in the US. The US couldn't have older castles because no one was living here except the Native Americans. So that would make sense if the castle was built in the 1850s, because really the U.S. didn't really exist before then. So they couldn't have built castles that are hundreds or thousands of years old, like in Europe. It would be cool though if America had one like that, but they don't. They're all in Europe. That's why the majority of the ones we speak about are in Europe. But now, next week,
Hmm.
we are going to come back and go through some more.
Hmm.
And I think there's one in Japan that we're going to be discussing, right?
Yes, correct. It is.
So we're going to get into Asia as well. So Europe and Asia. And I'd like to hear about that one. See what that's like.
Indeed.
Well, that was lovely. Now I have night terrors. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And on that note, it's time for us to go. So thank you so much for those of you who tuned in. I hope you liked our little castles of horrors. Ooh. Hope you
Thank you
don't have
very
any
much for joining
nightmares.
us,
I've been Bella, and
and
he's
we hope
been
you have a sleepless
Sidekick.
night.
Sleepless night. Yeah, mean. I didn't say that. Everyone he said it. Okay. So I hope you guys have a great night and hopefully don't have nightmares or night terrors about these haunted castles. But if you do, let us know because I like to hear your experiences or your dreams. Maybe you
Hmm.
have like dreams of the real ghosts that haunt the place and they give you answers to some of our questions. Ooh, that would be cool. Okay. On that note, ciao, ciao, everybody.
Bye bye for
See you
now.
later. See you next week.
Don't have nightmares. Actually, maybe do.
Mm.
Powered by Riverside FM.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye 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 bye. Bye bye. Ciao ciao. Ciao ciao ciao. Why are you screaming?
That was me.
Oh, it was a ghost. Okay.